The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, UNU Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on me.
Yes, hello everyone, and a very good evening to you. Welcome to All You Can Eat, the podcast about deliciousness. Delighted to have you all here. Coming to you live on, the 9th day of January in 2019, podcast episode number 41. I'm your host, Robert Rosenthal. Welcome. Delicious day here in town. Glad that you're here. Excited about tonight's show. A lot to cover, including an interview or a conversation, if you will, with Katie Workman, also known as MOM100. Frankly, that's what I would call her, because she is MOM100, a cookbook author and a writer and a mother who can cook and write. So we're going to get to Katie in a little while. Before we do, as always, let's talk about what's new and happening. I noticed a couple of things that stood out today in the news. One kind of a piece of sad news, if you ask me. Another was good. In the sad news, a Paris nudist restaurant has announced that they're going out of business. So, my friends, if you had not had an opportunity to eat at Au Naturel in Paris, where people go in and eat naked, you only have a few weeks left because they're closing down. Just could not generate enough business there for some reason that I am unsure of. However, in the very good news, also today, I discover that Costco, and those of you who know me know that I am the Costco ho, Costco is selling a 7-pound tub of Nutella, worth every cent of the $22 price tag. As you've heard me say before, Nutella is the crack cocaine of the kitchen, and they're selling it at Costco, a 7-pound tub. Get yours now. So with every piece of bad news, there is something good. Now, because Katie is a cookbook author and writer, one of the things you'll notice when you go to her MOM100.com, MOM100 website, is dinner time inspiration. So let me begin this evening by talking about my own dinner, because I'm excited about it. I think I stole the recipe from Michael Simon, who some of you may know. He's one of the celebrity chefs. And the basic recipe was based on kind of searing some chicken thighs and then cooking them down ultimately with kale and with peppers. In the way that I've been making it, I remember using either Anaheim peppers, or I have also used a Cubanelle. I suppose you could use Italian frying peppers. The idea is to give it a little bit of a hit of heat without it being overwhelming. And of course, I've adapted the recipe so many times that when I made it tonight, I also included in a potato in the recipe. And this is why I love this dish. First of all, when it comes to chicken parts, you can keep your breasts and you can keep your legs. I have always been, and I've mentioned this before, a chicken thigh guy. That is my favorite part. It's not that I don't like wings. I do. It's just that, wings I don't really see as a meal. Wings are perfect, as a snack, as an appetizer during the game. But when it comes to like eating a meal, I want thighs. And part of the reason I love thighs is not only because, I like the dark meat, has a richer flavor than the breast. I think the skin to meat ratio is great. And also, importantly, I find thighs, even for those who don't cook, to be as indestructible kind of a piece of protein as you can get. Like you really have to work super hard to ruin them. especially when you're kind of making them as I did, and which is to say that I'm going to sear them. This is one of the reasons I like. There's a lot of reasons I like this dish, not only because it's a thigh, but because it's also made in one pot. Okay, so there's only one pot to work with. There's only one pot at the end to clean. I did not have to add any lubrication, so there's no oil that went in because I season the chicken thighs and they go in skin side down, and before you know it, you have plenty of rendered chicken fat in the bottom of your pan. So much so that I cut up a potato and dropped it in there. So I'm now crisping up some potatoes in the chicken fat. And then I add in what you would call your aromatics, right? So in goes some onion, in goes some garlic, simple, easy, and those peppers. And once that begins to kind of soften up a little bit, sweat, as they might say in the business, then back into the pot go your chicken thighs, which are now beautifully browned from having seared them, and then a whole ton of in my case kale. I don't even have to. I remember the original recipe probably called for some kind of like chicken broth. Not necessary. The truth of the matter is, I just leave the kale moist from the rinse. I don't over dry them. And then when the kale goes back in and everything is seasoned, and you season every single layer across the way. This is important. I'm going to talk to Katie about this. The importance of kind of understanding that you're not just seasoning once. You season at each level that you're adding in. So when I put in the onions, they get a little seasoning. When I put in the potatoes, they get a little hit of salt and pepper. When I put in the kale, that gets a touch of salt and whatever. And then the lid goes on, and I just let it cook on a relatively low heat for, whatever it is, 30, 40, 45 minutes. And it's beautiful, and it makes its own kind of fabulous, gravy. It's not really gravy so much. It's just that with the onions kind of reduced down, they get soft, they get sweet. The potatoes are in there. It's just a beautiful meal, and it's all done in one pot. So there you go. That was my dinner situation this evening. Now, as I do oftentimes on the program, I sit here because it's 8 o'clock on the East Coast with a cocktail. You know what? Even before I get into the cocktail, I have to say that when I opened up the package of chicken thighs, I was surprised to see underneath all the chicken that my chicken thighs came with a little message. This actually kind of surprised me. First of all, it's Bell & Evans. And again, that I used Bell & Evans is because that was the best that was available in the time. Remember, I've said it before, I will say it 1,000 times since. A very simple rule I have about cooking: get the best ingredients you can and don't mess them up too much. So when it comes to chicken, you get the best you can. In this case, it happened to have been the Bell & Evans. I've certainly used all types of birds before. It could be kosher, they could be organic, but get the best you can. And when I opened up these chicken thighs, there I was surprised to see for the first time ever a message at the bottom of my container which says Bell & Evans core values. I was glad to see that my chicken has core values. Bell & Evans, we are passionate. Okay, so I have passionate chickens, and that means that it's about I should be able to. I read this at the risk, by the way, of having my fingers filled with chicken goo. Passionate about raising healthy and happy chickens. So not only are the people who bring you the chickens passionate, but my chickens themselves were happy. And I started to think to myself, I would rather eat a happy chicken than a depressed chicken. I don't know what makes them happy, but I'm going to guess that chickens that are allowed to kind of run around in their own little environment without being trapped, without being kind of confined, I'm assuming are happier chickens. Anyway, family owned and dedicated and committed to doing. Oh, and my core values here are committed to doing the right thing all of the time. Let me see if I. Okay, am I back there? Yeah. Okay, good. Because I think I just almost destroyed. Not my fingers, but rather my entire studio setup. Okay, and I'm not concerned, by the way, about walking around with chicken on my fingers because I hold in my hand a product called Cleanwell, sent to me by the good people at Cleanwell. I'm going to spray some on right now. And I want to say that I like the product a lot. Okay, people are using all types of kind of hand sanitizers. Some are more well-known than others. I'm here to report, as I do on CleanWell, and you can find it on, I think it's cleanwelltoday.com, exactly as you would think. They make hand sanitizers and other disinfectants, including hand wipes. I like this product. I like the size of it, which is small enough to fit in any little pocket or to bring on a plane with you or anywhere you travel. It's a small little container. I like that you can, spray it. I like the spritz. And even though it's small, this little product has 225. This is 1 ounce of natural hand sanitizer with 225 sprays in it. I happen to be using the original formula. Apparently, they have one that's orange vanilla. So I want to say a couple things. First of all, by the way, it's botanical, it's alcohol-free, it's kid-friendly, so it doesn't sting. It's all good things. It kills 99.9% of your germs. So thank you to the people of CleanWell. And for those of you looking for a product, whether it happens to be a wipe or a sanitizer or a gel, it's cleanwelltoday.com. Very good. And as I was about to say before we cut over to Katie, that I like to have the adult beverage with each podcast tonight is brought to you by the people from Empower. Empower is a cosmopolitan martini, which is to say it's a beautiful crystal clear bottle that looks like most other spirits. The brand name is Empower. And it's a sweet potato vodka with white cranberry, triple sec, and lime flavors. That's why they say cosmopolitan, because those are the primary ingredients in cosmopolitan. Served chilled, only 12.5% alcohol, 25% proof. So basically, let me tell you a little about, let me see if I can find that. Oh yeah, here it is, right here. Right, so Empower Cocktails. And by the way, it's a company that is dedicated to women's empowerment. Distilled beverage market. I'm going to read their press release because I just think I get a kick out of press releases. But anyway, the distilled beverage market is a booming industry, but it's one that continually targets men while leaving women out as an afterthought. And here I am drinking a women's cocktail. With Empower Cocktails, all of that is about to change as a new disruptor that puts celebrating and empowering women at the forefront of its mission, another one with a mission. Empower Cocktails dazzles and delights with its ready-to-pour line of delicious cocktail drinks. Exciting new brand for its cocktails, sweet potato vodka, which I like because, sweet potatoes, by the way, one of the top 10 power foods, so you might as well be having something, some sweet potato in you. But you can make vodka pretty much out of anything. And so why not sweet potato? I tried the product. I like it. It's not too sweet. It has, as I said, a little triple sec, a little white cranberry, a little lime in it. You serve it ice cold in a martini glass. It's 25% proof, and it's only 80 calories. So why is that interesting? For a lot of reasons. First of all, I wouldn't, look, I'm all about full disclosure. I wouldn't be reporting on it if I didn't like it. That's my bottom line. I like that it's only 80 calories. I figured out how to make it more, mind you, by adding in some cranberry liqueur from a company called Heimat, Heimat, which is a lovely addition to it. But I like the product Empower on its own. And 80 calories, I suppose, is particularly good this time of year because January is still a time to stay clean. And so, with that, I will say, by the way, that, and tell me if you've had this experience, I'm going to ask Katie about this in a minute, but anytime I'm trying to keep it clean, which generally means avoiding things like added sugar and alcohol and kind of a whole lot of bread and pasta and gluten-y type products and maybe dairy if you're really going crazy, I find that everything in the world looks good to me. And so the thing that looked good to me today was nothing more than a recipe online for salami and pickled grilled cheese. Every time that I want to go clean, I seem to be tortured with fabulous-looking food everywhere I go. Anyway, I think that those were all the announcements. What I ate, what I drank, what I'm drinking. My hands are clean. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to the one and only Katie Workman. She is a cook, a writer, a mother of two, an activist on hunger issues, and an enthusiastic advocate for family meals. Which is the inspiration behind her two beloved cookbooks. Dinner Solved and the MOM100 Cookbook. And I got to say, super highly regarded, very popular books. Katie, it's a pleasure to have you on. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here with you.
Okay, let's start from the very beginning, Katie. Before we talk about, dinner and that kind of inspiration, here's what I would like to know. Well, first of all, I don't have to guess. I kind of know what's in the oven at your place right now. What's going on for dinner over at your place tonight?
It's actually really funny. I feel like when I do a late night interview, it's always a little like dicey, and I'm never like practicing what I preach. But at the same time, I actually am, because like truly everybody deserves like who gives a crap if you're putting dinner on the table, homemade every day, if you're doing your best, you're getting some dinners on the table, you're sitting down facing your family face to face, like whatever that takes. So actually right now, because I was just visiting a friend who, a friend who lost her partner, and then I knew I was doing this, so I had bought these amazing meatballs at Arthur Avenue, frozen,
nice,
that my friend had told me were amazing. So they're in the oven right now, and I'm heating up some frozen tomato sauce that I made a while ago, and it's a very casual night here, and we're going to eat at 9:30. Me and one of my sons.
I'm that's all good, and I've done that too. I opted tonight because I was cooking for one of my daughters and me. I opted tonight to eat before the podcast, although more often I'll do it afterwards. And I just think I want to do two things. I want to talk about two things that you just mentioned. One was the tomato sauce, because I'm going to because I have a point of view about that. But just for people that don't know, tell everybody about Arthur Avenue. Like, why Arthur Avenue?
Arthur Avenue. Okay. So Arthur Avenue, I mean, first of all, I feel like I could say 10 things about your intro, and I want to. Everything from Costco to the fact that, booze is dedicated to women's empowerment. I mean, my God, you covered a lot. But so there was a cookbook author named Ed Joby who was very famous in the 70s, and his daughter, whose name is Gina Joby Bone, I met her about 10 years ago at some event, and I knew who her dad was, and he probably wasn't as famous as like Marcella Hazan and but I said to her, I was the hugest fan of your dad's. Huge. Loved him. My mom had his cookbooks, and I just want to say hi. And she said, I go shopping at Arthur Avenue every Friday with my dad. Ed, do you want to join us? And I said, yes, I do. And we started, so now we go shopping on Arthur Avenue periodically, Gina, her dad, Ed, and I. And he knows everybody on Arthur Avenue, the calamari fresh, and what's the best mozzarella, and the whole thing. And I'm just the little Jewish girl tagging along, smiling, and buying everything that Ed points at.
Right.
And we've been doing this for years and years. And Gina and Ed said these were really good meatballs, and so that's why I have them there. But Arthur Avenue is in the Bronx, and it is this stretch of a few blocks that is this time frozen, where it's Italian American experience, and you can buy everything there that has to do with Italian American cooking and Italian cooking, and it's very magical, and I love it. And every time I think I just spent $200 on ingredients, I think that is so much cheaper than therapy, and I got to hang out with Gina and Ed. So that's my Arthur Avenue synopsis.
Very good call. Very good explanation. And just, for people from around the world who are tuned in, I mean, Arthur Avenue is arguably, I make a big deal on the show about Queens a lot, just because it's the most ethnically diverse kind of cuisine.
It is.
Potentially in the world, but at least in the United States of America. I don't talk a lot about the Bronx, but Arthur Avenue is arguably maybe the best Little Italy in America.
It's possibly the best Little Italy in the world. Well, outside of Italy.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's a Little Italy.
Mm-hmm.
Now.
Little. It's amazing. It's incredible.
It is. It's a treat to be there. And, so here's what I wanted to skip to, because you mentioned tomato sauce. Now, I'm guessing because you defrosted it, Do you make your own tomato sauce, or is that something you purchase as well?
I do. Well, I'm not averse to a jar of anything. If you're in a pinch and you open a jar of something and you've got dinner on the table, awesome, good for you. You're gold. You removed an obstacle from yourself and dinner with your family. So fantastic. You made the meatballs. You didn't make the meatballs. You made the salad. You didn't make the salad. Doesn't matter. Like, make one thing, make 10 things, make nothing. Just figure out how to, like, sit at the table every once in a while with your family. That's a good thing. And I do make my own tomato sauce, and meat sauces and all that kind of thing. And the difference of making your own tomato sauce, like, Marcella Hazan, going back to Italian people who really knew what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
She has this, like, famous, right, her famous sauce where, like, you basically cook an onion in crushed tomatoes. That's, like, basically her sauce. And, like, I think you wave a handful of basil over it, like vermouth or something.
Right.
But, like, so if you chop up an onion and saute it in a little olive oil, and then add a tiny bit of minced garlic, and if you don't have fresh herbs, add a shake of oregano, a shake of basil, and a couple cans of crushed tomatoes, and then just simmer that for 20 minutes, you have made your own tomato sauce. And then if you have fresh basil, awesome. If you want it spicy, add add a pinch of red pepper flakes.
Right.
You know, you could add a little bit of minced anchovy or some diced, you could add some chopped up olives if you want. But if you dice an onion and throw it in some olive oil, and basically if you only added a can of crushed tomatoes at that point, you would have made your own tomato sauce.
Yes, and I would say it's also the same if all you put into that olive oil was some crushed garlic. And the reason I bring it up is because
same.
And the reason I bring it up is because I say time after time here that of the things that I insist that people make their own versus buying bottled, and I don't disagree with the premise, by the way, that anything you're putting on the table and serving is a good thing. We're going to get back to that. But I do insist that people make two things rather than buy them. And one of them is your own vinaigrette, and the other...
Oh,
right, and
that so loudly. I'm such a vinaigrette person. Yeah.
And the other is tomato sauce, because I find that any time that I take a decent can of tomatoes, whether they're San Marzano or not, doesn't really matter. You get some decent tomatoes in a can, Italian plum tomatoes, and you saute a little bit of either garlic or onion or both, and you let that cook, as you said, for 20, 30 minutes. You're 99 times out of 100 going to have a better product that's more satisfying to make and less expensive than anything you're going to buy in a jar. That's how I feel about it.
No, I agree, and I also think that I don't know. I've said this 100 times. Like, every day is its own reality. So, like, whatever you're grappling with that day, if you're doing your best to make some food, like, you should just be patting yourself on the back wildly.
Yeah, I'm with you. In fact, that's what I want to talk about, because the other thing that you made reference to early on was literally, and you're MOM100. I go by the handle in another life as Short Order Dad. So, and we've both written books on the subject, which are predicated on the idea of cooking and eating at home with some regularity with your family. So now here's the question that I ask you before we talk about the importance of that. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Manhattan until I was 7, and then Westport, Connecticut until I went to college. But I always felt like it was some terrible error on my family's part to have moved to Westport, because I didn't understand why we ever left the city. Neither my mother nor me. That was terrible grammar. Anyway, my mother likes to say that you can see her heels skidding off of the road where she was dragged behind my father's car at exit 17. But I didn't feel that way at the time, but I just basically couldn't wait to get back to the city. So I am a provincial New Yorker.
And what was it? What are your recollections in terms of food and eating and family? What is your connection to food that ultimately, well, I'm always fascinated by people that are in the food space now. So I always ask this question: what are your early memories of food? What's your connection to it? Who cooked? What did you eat? That kind of thing.
Mine would take up way too much time to answer thoroughly. My mom was a very good cook and also a very gracious and sort of cool entertainer. Like she made cassoulets and paella for people when nobody else did that. Like she had her couple of show off dishes,
right.
And she was really gracious and made people feel welcome and knew how to entertain and knew how to put together a table. And my father was a publisher and a publisher of many famous cookbooks like the Silver Pellet Cookbook and many other cookbooks, which is what I grew up reading when that was my bedtime reading because I was a nerdy, obsessive child about cookbooks. And so I was sort of surrounded by that. And then I also have horrible food allergies. So for me to eat some of these foods that had to be cooked by someone I trusted or cooked by myself. So all of this sort of fed into this very deep love of food and entertaining, and more importantly, what gelled for me was the communal part of it. I have said many a time, if I was given the most beautiful kitchen in the entire world and the best ingredients in the whole universe to cook with, and there was no one at the table, I would pop a bowl of popcorn and just sit there and drink a glass of wine, and I would never cook again. For me, it's all about the people all around the table.
It's, okay, so there are two things here. One is, what about cooking itself? Do you love cooking or like it, or do it out of kind of more the need to bring the people together?
I love cooking so much that it's ridiculous, and I can't even explain it. I'll come home at 11 o'clock, having gone to an event with my husband, and I will make soup at 11 o'clock at night. It's a relaxation. It's very therapeutic, and people definitely said to me when I was moving from becoming a cookbook editor and a writer to becoming a cook and a food writer that, if you do this for a living, you might not enjoy it so much. It will become your work. And it never did. It never did. I like cooking day in, day out. I love it. I find it very relaxing and interesting. But again, if it was for myself, I don't even care if I love to cook for people I don't know. As you mentioned at the beginning, I do a lot with hunger and hunger relief, and I'm very active I'm on the board of City Harvest and Share Our Strength, No Kid Hungry's Leadership Council. And the idea of just feeding people brings me enormous pleasure, and possibly, pathologically so, but anyway, I don't like it. I love it.
Same here. Now let's go over to the what started the conversation, which is
these meatballs look pretty good, by the way. I'm taking them out of the oven.
I'll tell you something, by the way. I've been making a ton of meatballs, and it turns out that apparently one of my recent batches was one of my better ones. But I would have no problem picking up meatballs from Arthur Avenue because
I've never bought meatballs. I never do. But Gina and Ed said these were really good, and I bought them, and they're huge. They're 3 inches in diameter. So
yeah. And I'll tell you the difference. It's real Italians, wouldn't necessarily love my meatballs because when you look at the classic kind of Italian meatballs, they are larger in size, and they have I don't think fluffy is the right word, but they have a texture to them which allows them to maintain a certain softness, which is a combination of using I think that, generally using different kind of meat in there. There could be some veal in there. There could, some beef, whatever. They also will use either breadcrumbs or you know what I mean, or some bread and milk. Yeah. And so anyway, I have no problem with that. But here is the question for you. You mentioned how kind of important it is to have dinner with the family at the table with some regularity. Talk about that. Why is that important? What does it mean? What do you get out of it? What's the value?
I honestly won't tell you anything that people haven't said before. It's like, there's, especially in this day and age, and we wrestle with it all the time with screens and all of us and working from home. And, you actually have to, I think, physically take a moment to strip away and say, everybody put their electronics away. We are sitting down for 20 minutes. And the first 5 minutes are usually like, pass this, pass that. And then something comes up, and it could be something about one of the people's days. It could be sometimes I just actually had with my two sons, my older son was home. My older son just went to college, which I can't even but he was home. My mom was over, and Gary made some joke about the politics. He said, how about that government shutdown? And everyone went like, ha. And then we talked about the government shutdown for 15 minutes and we never would have done that otherwise. We just wouldn't have. It would just not, somebody would have been running, somebody would have been doing this. And which isn't to say it's the only time you can have a conversation. Because I really don't like when people make you feel like you failed when you don't have regular family dinners, or because it can be breakfast, it can be brunch on a Sunday. It can also be a car ride. I mean, sometimes we're in the car and that's a time where we'll play a podcast and talk about something, because I really hate when people make you feel like you failed if you're not sitting down to dinner 4 or 5 times a week with your family. That's a really shitty way to feel, the pressure shouldn't be all on that,
right.
But it is a nice, especially if you can, it's basically any excuse you can use to remove the electronics. And if you're sharing a meal on top of that, and people are passing the potato salad, and, then it feels like bonus all around.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you make an interesting point, because I have actually written on the subject, made presentations on the subject, about kind of the importance of spending some quality time at the table, eating kind of meals that you prepared at home. And it can be, to your point, it can come off as being preachy, for lack of a better word. And you're right, but I guess the thing also, and I mean, look, I did it a lot. I did it and my wife and I both, while we're working in professional, careers, found some way. I was responsible, for making, at least breakfast and most dinners. And I think ultimately, looking kind of back on it, not that I still don't do it, but it is one of the most valuable things ever. I just, at some point, you go, this is really kind of great time spent together. So and but I think you're right. I think the problem is that you've identified more than once, is the notion of not wanting to make people feel bad for not doing it. And so instead, I just try to promote the idea that, cooking is a good idea to do at home. One of the jokes that I make is that more often than not now, with, kind of delivery services and people going out to eat, is on the occasion that you have food at home, it's often out of containers, sitting on a couch, watching cooking shows. I always find that to be I know.
That's craziness, right?
Well, it is for me. Anyway, so you write a book. Where does the name MOM100 come from?
So that came from when I had left book editing and was working in digital recipe land, and an editor that I was friends with who I'd known forever, this amazing editor who has edited everything from Silver Palette, like Stephen Reichlin, tons of people. Mm-hmm. She took me out to lunch, and I've known her since I was a kid. And she said, she said, I think you should write a cookbook. Like, I like your writing. What would your book be? And I said, gosh, I think I would. I said, I just had this idea that, like, for, I don't know if I would do it differently now. It's funny to think about, because I said, I feel like, certainly there are many men who are the primary cooks in the household. Women take on that role more. And I said, like, I feel like there's just this constant, like, challenges moms face all the time. Like, oh my God, there's a bake sale tomorrow. I'm just telling you now, and then you need to bake something. Or like, you're the person staring at the package of chicken breasts and going like, Jesus, I cannot make the same thing again. Or, like, oh God, like, I keep saying I'm going to cook fish for my family, but I'm trying it because I always feel like they're not going to like it. And like, so what are those, what would those 100 recipes be that every mom would need in her back pocket, like, to solve all of those dilemmas? And, not to say there's not many, many more beautiful recipes out there, but like, if you are faced with that thing where you're just going like, oh, I have to make a vegetable, like, I really do, or I have to bring something to a potluck or whatever, like, where can you what's like the manual you grab that you like know that you would have success? So that was how it started.
And super well received, very successful book, and so excellent. What out of the book are there certain kind of recipes that are the most requested, the most kind of commented on? Are there a certain kind of like, if you had to pick like a couple of them that you were like, oh, this is kind of like my go-to thing, or what are the ones that kind of stand out?
Yeah. Well, my older son's favorite recipe is the taco night. It's like he will request that. If I ever say, what do you want for dinner? What do you want for your birthday? What do you want? It's been taco night for 10 years running. Right. My younger son loves taco night as well, but he's also, his big deal is black beans and rice. He loves that, like, deeply. And the chocolate peanut butter squares, both my boys, like, are just slightly obsessive about. My husband likes the cheesy, there's a theme here. It's very comfort foody. There's a cheesy, I never even know I can't remember what it's called because I've made it so many times. We just call it cheesy beefy. It's a one skillet cheesy beefy macaroni something. That has become like slightly culty. The one pot brownies, fudgy brownies, that has become very popular. The taco night too, like, people write me about like having that taco night like every week. I'm trying to think of other things that are particular, but those are some of the most popular ones, not just in my family, but other, and people who are not related to me or also that I did not give birth to love them as well.
That's nice. That's nice. When it comes to the kitchen, I don't remember if I was having this conversation, but like it kind of was on my radar recently. I remember seeing somebody that was kind of relatively well known saying, "Oh, the only real tools, gadgets are nonsense. The only real tools you need in the kitchen are good knives and good pans." What about like kitchen tools? Do you have a couple of favorites that are like that you use with some regularity?
Obviously, yeah, knives, pans, and cutting boards. I guess those are the core things, right? Knives, pans, and cutting boards. What else do I love? Oh, I love my Cuisinart deeply. I love my food processor, and my bowl just broke, and I need to get it replaced, and I do love that. I will give a little shout out to Oxa. They have these little slicer guys that I've been using recently, like for garlic and other things that you just put in a piece of a cucumber or a garlic clove, and you can and all of a sudden get these super thin slices, which is so nice. I'm trying to think of what else. I mean, obviously mixing bowls. I have a ridiculous amount of serveware. Like tabletop stuff is very appealing to me. And I've actually just, my husband and I bought the studio next door to us. We created a shoot-in studio where I will be able to do my work, but other people will do it too because we'll rent it out. And that will make me go from a hoarder to a prop stylist.
Nice.
So that's exciting.
Very exciting. I like to hear that.
Yes.
What do you do? What do you have like when you go out on the occasion that you go out? What are your kind of like? What are you excited about eating out versus making in?
Sushi has been my favorite food for my entire life from teenager on. Like if I could eat one thing, it would be sushi.
Yeah. And
I don't make that. So great sushi is my thing that I go out. But I love when other people take other restaurants and I can go. I mean, as I mentioned before, I have very severe food allergies. So I need to always feel like it can't be like too fusiony or too this or too that. Because unfortunately, like I could die and that would suck. But I love when somebody picks a great restaurant, and I love traveling, and I wish I could like eat more when I travel instead of being like so super cautious all the time. But my mom is taking me to Japan for 2 weeks in the beginning of February, and that's going to be like I'm beyond excited.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Japan because I was just going to say to you that oftentimes when I have guests on, one of the questions that I'll ask them, and I had not intended it for you, is if you had to pick one country to live in for the rest of your life on the basis of its cuisine, what would it be?
Japan.
Yeah, and it's the same for me. And I think that like people who don't kind of know, because it would be very easy to say something like, you know, Italy. It would be very easy to say France. It would be easy to say Singapore, or you could probably name a dozen places that would be easy and justifiable. But the reason for Japan is because they have so many different types of cuisine in that country. I am envious that you're going. That's an exciting trip.
I can't even believe it. I haven't even wrapped my mind around that because. But I will say, to give a plug to another place, a plug is silly, it implies endorsement, but like, I went to Alaska this summer, and with the Alaskan Seafood Marketing Institute, which was always a bucket list thing for me anyway. Alaska is, if it is on your bucket list, move it up 10 pegs, because it was incredible. Alaska, if you like seafood and you like beautiful, wild, open spaces, it was life changing. It was very, very life changing for me to be there. I can't say enough amazing things about being in Alaska. So I will also say that. And it doesn't feel like you're actually in the U.S. because it could be anywhere else. It's a foreign country. It's beautiful. In
fact, one of the things I heard was that if you're there, you're darn close. You can almost see Russia from your front door.
I heard that too.
So yeah.
I've heard that too. It's so weird.
I've deduced, incidentally, and you'll see that it's because my brain power is on high right now, that one of the things you're not allergic to is fish. So
I am not allergic to fish.
That is a good thing. Now, what about let's just shift gears for a little bit here. I know that you will enjoy some wine with your popcorn, and they say I don't pay attention. But what else? Is there a cocktail? Is there a house cocktail over at your place?
I do like to, when I have people over for like a bigger group or for a special occasion, I do like try to do like a cocktail, like, because I think it's really, I mean, I'm not the first person to say this. This is not my like super entertaining tip, but it is fun to make a cocktail that like is part of the equation. I have a bunch of them on the website, but recently I have been introduced to bourbon, and I like it.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned I came to bourbon late myself because I think like a lot of people, I had one of those drinking occasions in college, which was based on not bourbon, but it was a brown spirit, and I spent 30 years not drinking anything that was brown, mind you, except for maybe.
I hear you.
Except for
I hear you.
Except for
I
maybe,
will never drink gin again.
Oh.
And by the way, I can't really cook with juniper berries for the same reason.
Well, I was invited on a trip, and it was by the Kentucky, like Bourbon Association. Well, all I can tell you is that since I made that trip, and I'm going back now 5 years, I, like you, enjoy the hell out of bourbon. And, I like it a lot. I just feel.
Hey, did anyone ever tell you, do you ever see that ad for, the Mary Poppins thing in the back of the cab where she says, "I am a jaded New Yorker"? Did you ever hear that?
No.
Oh, so there's this woman in the back of the cab and she says, "Even I, a jaded New Yorker, love this show." And that's, you sound like her when you say "I." You have to look this up.
And by the way, I am also, I suppose you could say, a jaded New Yorker.
Right.
I enjoyed the bourbon, but I will tell you that I feel badly for you because there is nothing that I like more than a proper gin martini. It's just that what you learn, Katie, is that when it comes to gin, which is more hallucinogenic than pretty much any other substance on earth, you can only kind of have the one because you have too many gins, and you're going to end up with a felony. And that's all I can say. Now, what talk about? Because I love talking about the food part of it. What other kind of what are your indulgences? Like what's in the fridge or in the pantry that you like? It's late and you want something and you always have it. What's exciting?
Well, what I'm looking at right now is a can of, those like really good Virginia peanuts.
Oh yes.
Yes. I feel very strongly about those. I love them very deeply. And I also, my big constant thing that I eat, and my whole family does too, is stovetop popcorn, like making a pot of popcorn on the stove.
Right.
That is a big deal in our house and happens pretty much, like I would say 4 or 5 times a week, like a big pot.
I like where you're going with this, and I'll tell you why. Our tastes are similar, and there's 2 things I will mention in reference to that. Number one, at Costco this time of year, I noticed it like last week because I'm there every week of my life. They are selling giant tubs of Virginia peanuts, and those are the big, fat, just fabulous peanuts.
That's the one I'm looking at right now.
Yeah,
it's 2.5 pounds, and it cost me $6.69, I think.
Yeah, and here's the reason I will never buy them. Because I like them too much. I just don't even, I don't even want to know that they're there.
Okay, so I just wrote a whole thing about this for Food 52. It went up today. So I wrote this article about the 10 things I stock up on at Costco.
Wow.
And one of them was that. And and the peanut part was that the fact that they have the small bags and you can put them in your purse. Oh, your purse. What the fuck am I, like 80? Oh, sorry. Sorry, I swore.
Yeah, it's all right. They'll just put a little X next to the show so that nobody under 18 can listen.
So like I'm like carrying stuff in my purse, but I would. But then I was talking about how they have this 2.5 tub, and I said you can only buy it if you're having a party. You have a really huge peanut loving family, because otherwise that is too much in your house. But that is what I have on my counter, unfortunately, right now. And I literally just wrote this piece because you were talking about the Costco thing about, 10 things this mom of 2, this is their title, sorry, it's a little, but mom of 2 stocks up on at Costco. But then I was talking with my editor there, and did you know that they have Wagyu beef there for $100 a pound, and they sell it in 10-pound blocks for $1,000, and people are going in on this together?
Well, listen, I think that I have made clear you are talking to the Costco host, so I'm very aware of. Hang on 1 second. I'm very aware. Are you still there? Hello? Or did that blow our connection? Oh, it's crazy how that happens. All right, let me see if I can get Katie back on. Let's see. How do we get Katie back on? Sorry, there's not a show that goes by where I don't have one technical... I don't know. I swear I don't know how to do that. Isn't that crazy? Let's see if we can do that. Oh, yeah, we'll try it this way. It's weird. I mean, this is episode 41. I can't think of one episode where I have not had some technical problem. Crazy. Katie, are you there? All right, well, let's see. While I try to get her back on, am I aware that they have this kind of beef product at Costco? And the answer is, of course I am. Let's see if we can get Katie back here. I don't know. I'm going to try. I can't even believe it. Well, it was going very well while it was going. And I swear that I cannot figure out how to get... Oh, she's probably on the phone. Anyway, let me, while I try to get Katie back on, I am aware, because in fact I'm throwing a party in a couple of weeks. And one of the things that I like to do is I like to buy at the Costco the entire filet mignon. Now, people think of filet mignon as a slice of steak. And in fact, it is... Let me try her one more time here. Katie, is this working? There we go. That could get her back on. Well, we'll see. And I go to the Costco and I buy like an entire filet mignon. It's enough. Basically, it's probably like 10 pounds of meat. You trim it and you make it yourself, and it serves 20 people. So yeah, they got that going on. Well, all right. Look, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get Katie back on the line, and I don't know how really to explain that. But let us proceed with where we were. I want to first of all say thank you, because I enjoyed talking to Katie, and if you want to find her, all you have to do. Oh well, I don't know. Will that work? I can't tell. If you want to find her, all you have to do is go to themom100.com. Look, themom100.com. And you'll see on her site everything from recipes and stories to videos. Very impressive. Sorry that ended quickly. Let's go back to kind of what we were talking about. Yes, Costco. Yes, I don't remember seeing Wagyu. But I know that they have some both choice and prime meat. You can't go wrong with most of the beef product that you can find at Costco. I don't love their brisket. I am not happy with their skirt steak, but pretty much everything else from a meat perspective, great to get at that store. And that includes, by the way, an entire rack of pork. My God, I love making that. Love making that. And the organic chickens and the lamb, which generally comes in from New Zealand or Australia, and it is fantastic. The lamb chops, excellent. So anyway, that's a little bit about Costco. And I did mention early on, by the way, that they're selling 7-pound tubs of Nutella, which on its own is almost worth the trip, and that giant thing of peanuts. And I don't buy the giant container of Virginia peanuts because frankly, I'm a compulsive type, eater. I'm a compulsive eater. I don't want 2.5 pounds of Virginia peanuts in my house, because I am capable of slowly but surely consuming all of them. And the same thing holds, I think, for tortilla chips and salsa. I have a little bit of a problem. I mean, if there were a 12-step program, tortilla chips and salsa. Hello, my name is Rob. And by the way, chicken thighs. Anyway, I think I've made the point. I would also like to move over to... there was something else that I saw, not the salami and pickled grilled cheese sandwich, which again is like, I guess because I'm looking at it, not the actual sandwich, just the recipe. I looked at that and I thought, man, that just looks too It just looks too exciting to me. I want to refer also to a little bit of something else in the remaining. You know what? We only have 2 minutes. I won't actually cut to another story. Let me cut instead to the chase. I've said it before. I've said it again. I actually do love cooking. And I love it for whatever reason. I like the chopping. I like the creativity. I like the focus. I just like doing it. I actually like pouring a glass of wine or a cocktail. And I'm talking about, this is only a couple of hours ago, but it's a routine. And I like getting food ready, and I like having music going. And I don't care if I'm doing it. I mean, obviously, the more people that you're doing it for, the better. And I love cooking. And I am a guy who, some of you know, has written a cookbook. It's called Short Order Dad, One Guy's Guide to Making Food Fun and Hassle-Free. Like Katie, it's 100 recipes. The ones that I think not just every dad, but literally every person could and should know. You know that I said before, earlier in the show, that I have an attitude, a philosophy about cooking. Get the best ingredients you can. Don't mess them up too much. And so, in my book, you'll notice of the 100 recipes that probably 95% of them use only 5 or 6 ingredients max. Because my formula is getting the most taste with the fewest ingredients and the least effort. So anyway, if you want to pick up a copy of that, anywhere that you buy books online, whether it's Walmart, Barnes & Noble, Amazon is the obvious one. Short Order Dad, One Guy's Guide to Making Food Fun and Hassle-Free. I am also, would like to... Oh, by the way, if you want to find me, other than next Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, if you want to find me, just plug in Short Order Dad to Google. Right? Because you can find me on Instagram, you can find me on Twitter, you can find me on Facebook, all under the heading of Short Order Dad. And so, that's tonight's show, ladies and gentlemen, episode 41. Glad that we had an opportunity, and so sorry that I had a technical issue, and Katie got cut a little bit short, but that's Katie Workman, MOM100. And remember, as I always like to tell you, my friends, life is short, so never waste a meal.
I'm the Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick